Hey guys, this is Jay Calderon with Jay Unboxing here, giving you a bit of a fight preview for the heavyweight encounter between world titleist Anthony Joshua and unbeaten former cruiserweight kingpin Oleksandr Usyk, which will be taking place on Saturday. We will be getting into a little bit of the back and forth from both camps, the tale of the tape, what's on the line for both men, and more. But first, let's get started with a little bit of fight information. Obviously, we have the aforementions here of Joshua versus Usyk, fighting at the Tottenham Hotspurs Stadium in London, England. A beautiful facility, actually, and it should be interesting to see how well that can fill up and how it's going to look on the night. Channel on this side of the pond is DAZN. It will be pay-per-view. On the other side, of course, it's taking place in the heavyweight division with the IBF, WBA, and WBO heavyweight titles on the line. Now, going into the fight, Joshua's had his last three fights, and of course, they've been pretty interesting in a lot of different ways. We've learned quite a bit from them. You have a defeat to Andy Ruiz, which was a 7th-round TKO back in June of 2019. He then avenged his loss later that year with the 12-round unanimous decision, before, of course, taking care of mandatory challenger Kubrat Pulev with a 9th-round KO in December of last year. And while he did suffer that lone defeat relatively recently, he did avenge that loss to Ruiz and took care of a tough, faded Pulev. So, with the Ruiz loss, you did learn a couple of things about Joshua. It showed he could box and move if he needed to, like he did in the return, but it did show us that he has some vulnerability, something that he really hadn't shown much of. He'd been hurt before, but not a lot of vulnerability until that fight, and he really had to adjust, and did so. So you learned quite a bit about the man in his last three fights. For Usyk, he's had a really kind of up and down three-fight series here as well in his career. Of course, in 2018, he defeated Tony Bellew with 8th-round KO, probably the biggest profile fight of his career up to that point, up to this point, really. Then made his heavyweight debut against Chaz Witherspoon in October of 2019 with a 7th-round TKO, but kind of has struggled to look good in that fight, as well as his next one, which was against Derek Chisora, where he did earn a 12-round unanimous decision in October of 2020, but did not look all that convincing. So he again has shown us some brilliance at cruiserweight, where he was able to round up all the gold there was available to him, but has shown that it's been a period of growth and adaptation at heavyweight that's taken place, and it's hard to exactly gauge just how good he can be at the very top of the sport in terms of weight classes. Now, let's get into what they've said leading up to this fight. Both men have been respectful, to be perfectly honest. And it makes sense considering there's no bad blood, and both kind of give a nod to the other's attributes. They're there, they accept it, they just want to win. For Joshua, when speaking to The Guardian, he talked about the unique and challenging training that he's put himself through for preparation. Quote, "I'm training on the edge so I can put in a high-level performance. It's not just about training to get fit, it's about training to get better, putting yourself in a vulnerable situation and finding out who you are." He also mentioned training while using just his left hand to make things more engaging and challenging. And while Joshua acknowledged this might not be the biggest fight people want, it's a fight that definitely excites him. Even though it's not Tyson Fury, it's still a great fight. I'm up against an opponent that makes me want to get up in the morning because I want to improve. Now, for Usyk, also speaking to The Guardian, he kind of preached one primary idea, and that was really about staying calm. Quote, "There is a saying in Russia that if you rush, you make people laugh. So I would prefer to be calm and not rush." And he kind of preached that throughout that piece, also preaching that the pressure really isn't on him, but Joshua. He went on to say that he feels one advantage he has that may in fact keep him calm is that it's likely been very hard for Team Joshua to find sparring that can match the work he himself puts in. "I believe it is extremely difficult for him to get any sparring partners to prepare for me, so I believe I will win. I will do everything to win." Now, for a little bit of a tale of the tape here, like I said, we have quite an interesting kind of matchup or dichotomy between the two here. As you can see on the screen there, we have age relatively similar at heavyweight, 30, 35. You're kind of in the same range, nothing major there. Even in terms of, you looking at their records there, they're pretty outstanding. I mean, obviously with Usyk here, he's never lost, and with Joshua, he's at least won or avenged against every opponent he's ever faced. There's not a lot of differences. It's until you get to where you might look at their primary positions of power over the other. when it comes to power for Joshua, obviously, as well as his size. Couple inches taller, couple inches longer in terms of his reach. The strength that you might notice Usyk implement on the night will be the stance area. That's the southpaw stance. For him, it could be the key to him having any kind of success on the night. Now, getting into what's on the line, obviously you have much of the gold on the line for a heavyweight clash, but of course, there's a bit more to be had. For AJ, it's a chance to set the table for a Fury encounter. I mean, that is the mega fight to be made. Of course, him fighting Wilder's not some kind of slouch fight by any means either, but the expected fight is him between Fury at this point. And the reason this kind of sets that table is firstly because you have a win, which means you keep your momentum going. However, it also helps show what AJ can do against someone with a similar technical boxing style in Usyk. He might not be as unorthodox as Fury, but he is somewhat of a smaller version of him in that he is more of a technical boxer, puncher who has some skills, some speed, things of that nature. Of course, not exactly the same fight at all in terms of dimensions, but something that could definitely be used to sell the encounter at the very least. Now for Usyk, it's a bit of a no-lose situation, and in fact he's willing to take the risk is commendable. Still, he wants to win. You can tell he does. This isn't just a payday for him, though it certainly is that as well. It really is something that he's trying to make sure does amazing things for his legacy. You know, a win means he beat one of the best heavyweights in the world and is potentially a single fight or so, depending on rematches and what have you, away from completely unifying his second straight division. That's not nothing by any means. Overall, this is a very intriguing fight, even if it's not the heavyweight clash we want. Much like the last couple of years in boxing, fights are very hard to make, but this one is a decent one. It's one that we can actually agree upon and say, you know what, it's not the one we want, but it ain't that bad either. Definitely one that hits closer to home at the very least in that regard. So, should be an interesting fight coming up this weekend. In any event, let me know what your level of hype is for this fight, as well as what you expect to happen. Love to hear all your thoughts on this one, predictions, so on and so forth. Who do you got? Speaking of predictions, be sure to check out mine later this week. We'll be dropping soon. Greatly appreciate that. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and follow at JCalderon_JOB on Twitter. You can email me at junboxing@gmail.com. And of course, be sure to visit junboxing.com for schedule results, betting odds, rankings, all that good stuff. And as always, until next time.